right, we just want to thank any of you who are returning coaches that are here for the training today, and especially those that participate in that video. We're really looking forward to hearing all about some of your experiences and hoping it encourages others to join us. I should take a minute to introduce myself. My name is Alexandra. I am the Minnesota Green Corps member here at Metro Blooms this year, and I'm also the primary coaching contact for the Lawns to Legumes program as we go through this spring. And I'll hand it over.
And my name is Elena Merklowitz. I'm the Environmental Education Project Manager here at Metro Blooms in Blue Thumb. And I will be serving all of your educational needs for our workshop program and for the LPL program.
And then behind the scenes today and every day, we've got John Bly, who's working in the chat to answer some of your questions, and we'll be hearing from him a little bit later. Becky, who is the director of Blue Thumb, she keeps us all in line and keeps us going. Glad to have her on this call today. And then we also have Dan Shaw from the Minnesota Board of Water and Soil Resources joining us. He's going to be presenting in just a moment on the program as it's been thus far and some of the outcomes that we've had since it started. But before we do that, I just want to take a minute to kind of clarify some organizational partners that are a part of this project. So the Minnesota Board of Water and Soil Resources is the kind of owner of the Lawns to Legumes program, and they contracted with Blue Thumb Planting for Clean Water to help manage the individual support grant side of the program, which is what you all would be serving in as a coach. And Blue Thumb is the sort of educational and outreach arm of Metro Blooms. So if you see all of these names and logos on either our emails or just around, know that we're all working together on the same Lawns to Legumes project. So a quick look at our agenda today. I want to go ahead and hand it straight over to Dan to start talking about the program.
All right, thank you, Alexandra. It's good to be with all of you, and I thank you for all joining us today, being part of this Lawns to Legumes program. So we'll start off talking a little bit about the program. It started in 2019. That was the beginning of Lawns to Legumes. And really from the beginning, we wanted to create a movement with this program to support pollinators. And that's been our main goal as we've progressed with this program. Program has continued to evolve over time and will continue evolving as we learn about outcomes and how we can maximize benefits. It has been the first statewide program in the nation to allow any resident across the state to apply for pollinator funding. Next slide, please. Right from the beginning, we created 3 different components to this program, and these were really designed to maximize those benefits for pollinators. We were hearing from a lot of residents that they just wanted some resources and information to get started. So we developed a public education and outreach campaign to provide resources and assistance to residents across the state. We also created the individual landowner support component of the program, which is the part that you're all involved in with as being coaches. This involves $350 grants, coaching, workshops, and we've had it's around 18,000, probably a little over 18,000 applications so far for that part of the program. We do have an application period that is currently open as well. And then there's a demonstration neighborhood part of the program. These are larger grants of between $20,000 and $40,000 to build larger corridors for at-risk species within the state. And local organizations apply for this funding and then work with groups of residents to help build these corridors. Next slide. We've been focusing on 4 different project types with this program. Native pocket plantings, which tend to be smaller native plantings. They can include rain gardens and shoreline plantings. Native trees and shrubs that are beneficial to pollinators, pollinator lawns, and pollinator meadows. And it's been helpful for us to have these 4 different types. It gives options for residents within their lawns. It also gives options if there's some ordinances that are a little restrictive for certain types of plantings. Usually the native pocket plantings, which are pretty small, or native trees and shrubs, can fit into most ordinances. So it has been helpful to have these different options. Next slide. So far with the grant, and these are numbers through December, we had 1,195 grant recipients, installed projects, and receiving cost share assistance with the program. Around 3.5 million square feet of area was planted, and this includes both the individual support and the demonstration neighborhood projects through December. And participants are providing quite a bit of match with this program as well, 145% match for their projects. So that's great to see that they're very committed to their projects and providing additional funding and time with their planting. And we've had over 130 volunteer coaches involved in this program. The volunteer coaches in many ways are the heart of this program because they play such an important role working with the residents and guiding them. So we really appreciate your involvement as coaches with this program. This map shows in gray where the applications have been for this program, and then red dots are projects that have been funded. And this is through the pilot phase of the program, essentially getting us through most of December. You can see there's applications statewide. We do tend to get more applications in the Twin Cities metro area, about 70%, but then we do try to get a distribution around the state. So we do send awards out around the state. So it's been good to see the distribution that we have. This program does have an equity focus as well. And the equity areas or environmental justice areas of the state are shown in the different shaded colors on the map. And we've had really good distribution within those environmental justice areas, which has been great to see. Next slide. And as I mentioned, coaches have played a really important role with this program. Our installation rates wouldn't be as high as they are without coaching involvement. We've been making adjustments to the program as we moved along, and installation rates have been increasing, and that's, I think, to a large extent due to the coaching involvement with residents. Not every resident is going to be committed to finishing their project, or they might finish it, without other assistance. But it's been great to see the benefits of having coaches involved with this program is part of the reason that we're really working hard to increase our numbers of coaches with the program. So again, thank you for your assistance with this work. I'll turn it over to Elena.
Thanks, Dan. So we have some exciting updates for 2023 with the Lawns de Legumes program. The spring and fall cohorts will each be awarded 2,000 grants, and we will also be piloting a voucher program in partnership with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in the goal of making the program more equitable. And very exciting is that we have a new workshop that we're introducing, Resilient Shorelines. This workshop covers the fundamentals of protecting water quality on shoreline properties, and it was made in partnership with all of our Blue Thumb partners. So that is very exciting, and what we will be introducing this upcoming workshop season. Also new to this year, which is a very big change that's very exciting, is that our online workshop content is now available to all Minnesotans for free. And that includes the Resilient Yards and Alternative Turf online workshop content. So in the past, you used to have to go to one of our workshops and see the presentation live, but now you can access this material and at any point and learn all this stuff on your own. And then if you feel like you would like to take the next step after that, residents can sign up to attend a live workshop where they can get their questions answered by experts in the field. And we will also, in around the fall time, be introducing a seed saving workshop, which is super neat. And we made that in partnership with MN Seed. And when folks register to receive this online content, they can automatically opt in to apply for the Lawns de Legumes program. Another very exciting change that we have made, largely due from the feedback that we've gotten from grant recipients and coaches, is that we are launching the Hive, which is an online community forum where grantees can go on and they can communicate with each other and answer each other's questions and just share progress on their own plantings, and just to kind of get that sense of community with each other. And that is an opportunity I'll talk more about later, if as an alternative to being the typical kind of coach that we have done in the past.
And then before we get into sort of the nitty-gritty on coaching, I just want to kind of review what the grant looks like. So grant recipients for spring 2023 are eligible for a $350 cost share grant, and they agree to the following kinds of things that we'll go through to receive that money. So they must maintain the project for at least 3 years and use native vegetation in their plantings. They must protect the projects from pesticides, submit before and after images and itemized receipts so that we can confirm what species they bought and planted. They map their projects and then contribute a 25% match, which can be either monetary or valued in kind work, which is valued at $25 an hour. It's just not reimbursable. And then we also do reimburse for eligible supplies for the gardens. So things like compost and mulch are all eligible, but they can make up no more than 30% of the total reimbursement. So 70% of the money that we reimburse for is for native vegetation. And then a quick look at our timeline. So grantees have already been notified. We've actually had almost 1,500 of them confirm their grants already for the spring. So we're very excited about that. Their first kickoff webinar is next week, and that sort of kickstarts our workshop season as well. So we will be hosting lawn to legume specific workshops under all of those topics that you see. And you, as coaches and grantees, will also be receiving links and invitations to attend those. By March 3rd, we plan to have all grantees matched with coaches, and we are hoping to do a mid-season check-in with coaches maybe in early April, and details on that are still up in the air, so you'll hear more about that at some later date. But the spring cohort project deadline is July 15th, and then that is so we can turn around and notify our fall cohort in early August of their grants. All right, so next we're going to go ahead and get into what coaching looks like and what that role is going to be like for you. So as a coach, your role is really just to provide extra support to grantees and be the extra motivation that turns all of their excitement into actual completed projects. And as a program, we've gathered a lot of DIY resources and created some really great educational materials and workshops to share as much knowledge as possible. But we are a surprisingly small staff, and we just don't have the capacity to answer all of the questions that come from the 1,500 or more grantees as they're going through their project. So this is where you come in as a coach to help either guide grantees to a resource that already exists. It might be one we have posted and they just didn't know about, or it might be a separate one you know about that would just fit the situation for the grantee, or to answer their questions just by sharing your knowledge and experiences. So to be a coach, we really ask two specific things of you. The first is that you commit your time during the grant period, which is to say come March 3rd, when you're assigned individual grantees, you don't suddenly just disappear and ghost them all. We want you to be available to answer their questions throughout the course of the grant period. Obviously, if something happens and you can no longer coach for any reason, we understand that completely. We just ask that you let us know so that we can reach out to your grantees and make sure they still have a contact person to answer any questions they have. And then the second thing that we ask is for you to just show up as a kind and patient teacher. You might not be the expert on everything your grantee asks you about or anything your grantee asks you about. But your knowledge and experiences have taught you a lot. they've got you this far, and sharing any of that can be really invaluable for some of our grantees, especially those who don't have any gardening experience at all and really just need the motivation that they really can do it. That being said, we put together a lot of resources that are available for you and your grantees. I encourage you to take a look at them. We recently updated our coaching handbook and have that posted to our website, and it's a really great place for you to start as a coach, get an idea of the kinds of questions you might be asked, the resources you can point grantees to, and just a little bit more of an understanding of what your role will really look like. And then for any questions you can't answer, our staff is always here. If we don't know the answer, we probably have a partner who is an expert in the area. So we will get those questions answered and provide those extra resources if you or your grantees need it. So that's sort of the role for you as a coach. I also want you to know what we tell our grantees to expect from our coaches. The first thing we tell our grantees is that they should only expect to interact with their coaches virtually. So if you end up with a grantee who's your next door neighbor and you want to go and see their property or talk to them in person, we're not going to stop you from doing that. But we want all of our grantees to understand that that's sort of the exception to the process and not the expectation for their coaches. So they will all be told to only expect to do virtual meetings with their coaches. And what those virtual meetings look like is really up to you in the end. So when we assign grantees, we only provide coaches with their contact information. So it's your responsibility to be the first person to reach out. And when you do that, you just want to kind of lay out what your availability is going to look like over the course of the grant period and decide together what the best way to communicate is going to be moving forward. Responses from coaches who have done this before and some of our surveys have said they spend between like 2 and 3 hours on average with each grantee throughout the whole course of the grant period. So we kind of break this down for our grantees and say they might get a longer meeting while they're still in the planning phases of their project right at the beginning, and then expect maybe a couple of opportunities to follow up with either questions or kind of progress reports for their coach. And the thing we really want to emphasize to you and to our grantees is that coaches don't have to be the expert. They are not the ones responsible for getting these projects completed. You're all really highly valued volunteers. So we understand that there need to be some limits and boundaries on your time and what you can do. And so if you end up having a grantee who's either asking you things that maybe you don't know the answer to, or just seems to need more help than you can provide, please direct them to us at this helpline email, and we are happy to either answer their questions further or help them find the resources that are going to help them finish out their project. So our grantees can have many different levels of experience when it comes to coaching and have different needs from their coaches. So you can really tailor your approach to each of them. Some may just need a single phone call to answer some really specific questions because they've already got everything planned out. Others really want to have you hold their hand the entire way and walk you through their property and ask you what kinds of projects you think would be a good idea and where to site them, everything. So for those situations, this is where our virtual tools can really come in handy. You can do a really thorough site visit and consultation over Zoom or another video platform. Our designers here at Metro Blooms, they do it all the time, and this is kind of how they use these tools. So you can use the county property GIS maps to see a property together, or you can use things like Google Maps, and then you can use the annotate feature on Zoom to actually start laying out plans together. We have a video that is linked in the coaching handbook that kind of goes over all of this and shows you exactly what it looks like. So I encourage, if you are not familiar with those tools, to take a look at that video. And I also encourage you, if you're going to do a site consultation, to have your grantees do a little bit of homework ahead of time and just prepare a really simple site assessment so that they kind of have an idea of what their property looks like or what projects that they're going to do. And we have information on how to conduct those site assessments on our website and also in the Resilient Yards workshop content. But regardless of the type of project a grantee decides to install, the goal of all of these plantings is to create high quality habitat for some of our state's most vulnerable pollinators. So while this is beneficial to all of our pollinators, our program has a specific focus on rusty patch bumblebees and monarch butterflies. So we provide some really excellent plant lists on our website that highlight the specific species that are going to be most beneficial to those two pollinators. The other thing about creating quality habitat, though, is it needs to be able to provide resources the entire time a pollinator is active. So for our rusty patch bumblebees, that can be much earlier and later into the season than it is for many of our other pollinators. So to support them, there should be a mix of at least 3 blooming species in early, mid, and late seasons in all of the plantings. And then the great thing about that diversity is that it supports all of our pollinators, including monarch butterflies, because it ensures that they'll have adequate availability of food. But monarchs are also specialist pollinators and require specific species like milkweed to host their larvae. And there are other pollinators that need some of those same species. So we encourage amongst the diversity of blooming species to mix in some of those specialist host plants as well. It can be really beneficial for all of our pollinators. That being said, we know that the plants that are most beneficial to our pollinators and that are best adapted to our Minnesota environment are our native plants. So that's what we want going in the ground. When it comes time to submit for reimbursement, grantees are required to submit an itemized receipt because we will not reimburse for cultivars, nativars, or non-native plants aside from the exceptions that are listed here on the slide. So this graphic is available in the coaching handbook, and it's also available to grantees. Highly recommend that they just kind of go over it and review so that they can learn how to distinguish cultivars from native plants before they go out and buy them all. I also want to say that grantees can plant cultivars. We're not coming by and ripping them out of the ground, but we will not reimburse for them. And we want that to be really, really clear when they submit their project. As for the exceptions, these were specifically chosen because of evidence showing their continued benefit to pollinators, or unfortunately the lack of the native variety in their place. So we will accept any varieties of the serviceberries and hawthorns.
Another resource that we have available on our site are lots of templates and different design guides. And we have found that those have been hugely helpful to grantees, especially to those that have a lot of hesitancy in how they even start their project. So we highly, highly recommend making sure that the grantees that you are connected with know about those resources that are on the Blue Thumbs website. And we also have a super extensive planting guide, the Planting for Pollinators Habitat Guide, that is on the Blue Thumb site, and it's also on the Lawns to Legumes site on Bowser's webpage. And yeah, all of those resources are just time and time again proven to be super, super helpful. And on our resource page on Blue Thumb, we have lots and lots of resources, arguably too many, which is great. And we're pretty continuously updating our website, adding new resources, trying to make it as accessible and easy to navigate as possible. So make sure to check back and just see if there's any updates for different resources we may have available. We have lots of stuff that, like I said, it's plant lists, design templates, stuff on making your shoreline resilient, and installing a pollinator lawn, and just general L2L guides. And we also, like I mentioned before, have all of our workshops, which have lots and lots of resources within them too, and recordings of experts giving presentations on all this material. Another really great resource that we have is our native nursery partner list. And that is really a great resource for grantees to make sure that they are able to find native plants specifically, and that when they do purchase native plants, that they will have ideally an itemized list, and that makes it much easier for us to reimburse them. And on this list, we also specify if the nurseries have online ordering and delivery, and if they can offer expert in-house advice for all of this information, because it can definitely be overwhelming, especially when a grantee is in the nursery and just kind of starting with all of this stuff. And it also specifies if they have native plant kits for sun and shade. And like I mentioned earlier, a new resource that we're super excited to introduce is the Hive. And that is, like I mentioned before, where grantees can go and get a sense of community and communicate with other grantees. And what we are also asking for from coaches who are interested in doing this is having them hop on to the Hive and give advice to grantees that may have questions, and just generally moderating the chat to make sure all the information that's shared and talked about is accurate. And yeah, so we're super excited about that. And we also will be introducing a coach hive, which is specifically where coaches can talk to each other to maybe get questions answered from their grantees that like maybe they don't know the answer to, but they want to see if another coach might have the information or resources to answer the question from their grantee. And we will be opening it up ideally tomorrow. But we are troubleshooting a lot of this because this is our first season using it. So we very much welcome all feedback for how you find the experience to be with both the coach hive and the grantee hive. And also we will be having L2L staff that will occasionally go on and try to give advice as well, and just to make sure everything is running smoothly.
So I just want to reiterate, this is a lot of information and all of it is available to you in that new coaching handbook. So I encourage you to take a look at that. If you have a question throughout the grant period, go there first. It probably has the answer, and if it doesn't, reach out to us. We'll answer your question and we'll add it to the handbook as well.
You are also invited to a lot of upcoming workshops that we have available specifically for L2L grantees and also coaches. So we have on March 14th, the Resilient Yards presentation that will be given by some of our designers, Jen and Rich. And then on March 7th, we will be having a Resilient Shorelines presentation that will be co-presented with Angie Hong from Washington Conservation District. And then we will, on March 21st, be having a turf alternatives workshop for L2L grantees that will be presented by James Wolfen of Twin City Seed, who knows so much about pollinators and pollinator lawns, and he is very, very fun to listen to. So we highly recommend you check out all of these workshops or whatever ones you can attend, or make sure your grantees know about them.
Okay, so now that we've reached the end, we really, really hope that you're more excited to join us than when we first started. And we've got a couple of next steps. So if you haven't already done so, go ahead and sign up to be a coach at the Blue Thumb website. Signing up there is kind of the first place to get your name and email address in our directory. And then it also gives you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about your service parameters if you have any. Second, we are going to be posting a link in the chat to a very, very quick Google form, which is just to confirm your participation for this spring. So if you've already filled out that page on the website, we still want you to go ahead and fill out this Google form because we just want to make sure that everyone is fully committed to coaching this spring. And ultimately, we just want to make sure we don't assign grantees to someone who's not going to be available or prepared for them.
And also on that form, you can specify if you are interested in being a coach on the hive specifically, or maybe, you know, like we welcome all coaches to hop into that forum at any point. But if you specifically are interested in pursuing that as like the sole coaching opportunity, that is something you can kind of let us know on that form.
Absolutely. And then, of course, we want you to continue to spread the word about the program, both people applying for it. We are currently accepting applications for our fall grant period, and we're very excited about that. But also, if you know anyone else who might be interested in being a coach or could make a really great coach, please let them know. We would love to have them on board. My email is listed here as promised. So if you have any questions specifically related to coaching, feel free to contact me directly, or you can email the L2L helpline. I work on that too, so I will probably see your questions, and we will be sure to get them answered as best we can.